When I had looked down after the customer started screaming, I went in shock, but I didn't drop the mannequin. I decided to still go try and put it down. So it still drew across and then severed the tendon. My name is Debi Facey. I am 31 years old and I'm currently a content creator and a founder of my own educational site, which is Everything Canna, Learn How, Know Why. In 2012, when it was my last 2 weeks at Forever 21, I was helping a customer. We had just decided as visual merchandisers that we would be taking items off the mannequin. Previously, we never did. It was always just something that we left on. So my position there was visual merchandiser, so I made things look pretty. That day, a customer had asked me for a size off the mannequin to check what it was. When I had taken the mannequin off the ledge, I had placed it on my hand directly how we were supposed to, so from the crotch, holding the base down. When I had lifted it back up to place it back up, it wasn't necessarily sitting on my hand properly. So as I adjusted the mannequin, it had punctured my left hand. At that point in time, I didn't really feel anything. So as I adjusted it, in order for me to set it back down, it was drawing through my hand and cutting it. So it ended up actually cutting open my hand at the side of the base. When I had looked down after the customer started screaming, I went in shock, but I didn't drop the mannequin. I decided to still go try and put it down. So it still drew across and then severed the tendon. Got it back on the shelf, which was great, but ended up actually having to walk immediately across the St. Mary's Hospital, getting stitches right there, and from there landed from 2 surgeries, which was one to correct it and then one to remove an neuroma, which was kind of like a tumor. And the third one was to remove the tumor and then to reconnect the nerves. And then the fourth one was to do a nerve graft and to remove a ganglion, which is where they took a part of the nerve from my upper arm with my left hand and inserted it in my left hand in order for me to gain sensation back. And in order for the ganglion not to seize up my hand as much, just due to the fact that with the compensation of both, it ended up giving me carpal tunnel in both hands. So at the time, the process was being able to either self-register or to be registered by your own practitioner. So how I did it was I went through Apollo and I self-registered myself. So that was where I had actually taken my actual medication, my medical form documents from my previous doctors and from my therapist, and I brought that to Apollo, and that's where we were able to really kind of dive in and see which diagnoses worked with which criteria in order to be able to obtain my medical license. The result of that was 4 years of different surgeries and 4.5 years of using actual medication. After the 5th year, I kind of realized that I wanted to slow down with that. So that was my personal way of being able to not necessarily move from recreational cannabis, but be able to do a little bit more education when it came to my own cannabis use and how it results and how it would benefit me. And also, it was about 3 years ago, before my mom passed from stage 4 sarcoma, where my family and I tried to figure out different ways in order for her to gain a more beneficial life, I want to say. It was difficult due to the fact that the surgeon actually said no. At the time, I couldn't even get my medical license just due to the fact of my age and of my past history of drug use. And on top of that, it was just something that was just impossible within the amount of time. So we did try among ourselves to obviously obtain, create, make, but it didn't really result into what we would have wanted. And it was unfortunate because a year later, I was able to get my medical card with no problem. So that's when I switched over, and that's another reason why. So I use it for two different things. I use it more for my psycho, which is going to be more for my anxiety and a little more for my depression. And then for my actual nerve damage. So due to the fact that I had severed my tendon, I don't have my nerve damages are shot through my left index finger all the way up to my upper arm. So with that, I've had a nerve graft as well as a ganglion removed. So the cannabis, when I use it topically, has allowed it to deflame. And it also allows it going through my bloodstream to help with the whole relaxation process. And because with the products that I make, I use it with actual essential oils too, so the terpenes help with the diffusion of it as well. So having that combination, it helps with the psychoactive aspect, so the anxiety, a bit of my actual DID, but a lot more when it comes to not necessarily the pain, but discomfort with my nerve being shot. Following my first surgery, I was obviously given the Oxycontin, but I was also given gabapentin. So gabapentin is also known as Lyrica, which is not necessarily a nerve blocker, but it's a nerve blocker. I was on that for 4.5 years. I had ended up getting off of it. I want to say shortly before they had announced that they had classed it as one of the drugs that are very much like an actual Oxycontin class. And that was something that really surprised me because I was utilizing cannabis at that same time, but it wasn't something that I even realized that when I had made the complete switch, it's not like I had went through withdrawal, but the switch was such a sudden switch that I realized what a big benefit I had actually done to myself, given myself, because my body wasn't necessarily feeling any greater from using the Lyrica. It was helping with the fact that it was desensitizing, but at the same time, when I was able to do more actual persistent education for myself when it came to strains, I realized that there was actual strains that were more geared towards exactly what I was trying to achieve, but didn't for the last 4.5 years. So I found when I did completely wean off of gabapentin, because it does take a little bit, so I say it took me about 2 weeks to be completely out of my system. And when I started using medical cannabis more, I found myself just being able to just be more chilled. I just wasn't on edge. I didn't feel like I needed to reach a scheduled time, or I had something to take, or there was another addition. Sometimes I find, especially for myself, having to take medication, period, is overwhelming. And it becomes overwhelming because it's all about timing. And it's all about a set schedule. And when it came to cannabis, it allowed me to start using it when I needed it, not when my body necessarily needed it, just due to the fact that I didn't train my body to start using cannabis only in the mornings, only in the evenings. I was utilizing it when I needed it. So when I felt that my body needed it, and when I felt that I needed it, we used it. When I didn't feel like I needed to use it, we didn't. So compared to having to take medication, it was a lot better of a transition, because when I didn't take the medication, I knew I needed to take the medication because not only was I going through withdrawal, but my body was having the reaction of going through withdrawal. So it was just a negative all around. So on a daily basis, I would say I smoke around 1.5 grams, and that will be in a combination between bud. That would be 1.5 grams of bud. I usually do smoke bong, just due to the fact that I don't necessarily like using paper. And vapes, I truly do recommend and I love, but sometimes on the go, it's a lot harder for me because I don't necessarily want to be as high. So when I do hit my bong, I'm able to kind of just hit it and go. When it does come to the other types of methods that I use, I do like being able to use the topicals as well as some tinctures. But the tinctures are more used in actual food. So I don't like using it sublingually, so underneath the tongue. I like being able to actually put it in my food or in my smoothies in the morning, so it actually does work more with my stomach. And when I actually do use my topicals, I use them in the shower due to the fact that that is the way for it to be activated. If we don't use it any other way and our skin isn't activated, it doesn't actually go through the 2 layers of our skin and doesn't go through our pores. So with that activation, it helps a lot with my nerves, and it helps a lot too with just my skin and keeping the moisture in, just due to the whole combination of them together. So I find those 3 methods are the best for me. So I actually started being able to just use it more as a smoking method, but by doing the research into the strains. From there, that's when I started then being able to use it topically after I started using it topically from other people, but then after I actually took my pharmaceutical course 2 years ago and started realizing that I could do more formulation when it came to my own chemotype and what agreed with me and what didn't agree with me, such as their terpenes, and that's when it came to the topicals and me being able to create and utilize topicals that were more geared towards the pain and the sensation that I needed. What it means to me to be a medical cannabis user, patient, advocate, it means it allows me to do what I do and use what I use without limitations. That being said though, it does create that whole barrier where medical and recreational is created due to the fact that there are things that I as a medical patient am allowed to do, such as consume any sort of form of cannabis, compared to a recreational user that has to wait till the laws to be passed. I found that it's benefited me, but it's also hindered me due to the fact that I look at cannabis as a whole. I look at medical cannabis as something that benefits me, but I don't look at medical cannabis as the only route or the only, I guess, choice, if that makes the clearest of minds of what I'm trying to say, to go through. And I think the government has kind of made it so medical is just people that are sick and recreational are just people that want to have fun. And that's not necessarily it. It's just due to the fact that being a medical patient, I found that it has allowed me to be able to really, truly do the research that is geared to what I need in order to succeed every single day.